The new collection of 21 intricately hand-drawn images is his third illustrated book and his first interactive publication. Please welcome John Aaron.
Hello, Carol. I moved back here 3 weeks ago to Louisville from California, and just as he mentioned, as Matt mentioned, I kind of kept coming back to work on the book, and I finally decided that if I was going to keep working on the book the way I was doing it, I might as well just move here, because I'm also working on Color Me Aspen and Color Me. Before we start, there's some copies of the book out and about, and you're welcome to come up and get a pencil or a pen. These are from Prismacolor. They were kind enough, I called them up, and they sent me enough pencils for everybody. And also the Faber-Castell company knew that I did most of my artwork with either Prismacolor or them, and not to be outdone, they sent us a bucket of these pens. I'm hoping that one day someone will come to me and says, I filled the entire book in. I'd like to see one such obsessed enthusiast. I do want to tell you also that these pens and pencils, which you see, the art that's here, I've done with these implements, and you can find them at Two Hands Papery, McGuckin's Hardware, Geary's, the art store down on Pearl, and at Grand Rabbit. I want to explain how this book came to be, because it's rather extraordinary. What I would like to explain is that how Color Me Boulder came to be was I hadn't been to Boulder since 2007 when I came for a wedding, and it wasn't hanging out here wasn't on my radar at all. But last March of 2018, a dear friend from California got seriously hurt while visiting her stepmom. About 6 blocks away from here, Sharon was run down by a racing bicyclist going 35 miles an hour while walking the second day here, and she ended up in the ICU. I volunteered, when I found out, I volunteered to fly out on behalf of her family to check to see how she was doing, because her family was pretty freaked out. They had some elder issues out there where they couldn't leave someone alone, so I offered to come out here. And when I got here, and before I got here, dear friends had stepped up to help in so many ways. For a month, she sat in the garden, meditated, and slept. And while she rested, I began drawing the architecture around Mapleton Hill, because I was just trying to keep busy. I was out of my studio, and I wanted to feel like I was working. And I had forgotten, when I was doing this, how much fun I had doing the buildings of Boulder. I was just drawing these things and filling them in and just continuing onward. And one day, Sharon goes down to Two Hands Papery and picks up a little coloring book, and I got her some pens, and she starts madly drawing to fill in. She goes, I'm going to come back, I'm going to bring myself back. So she starts working on this thing, and it starts to really help. And she mentioned to me, she goes, this is a meditation, this is a focus, it's going to bring me back so I understand what I'm supposed to do. And she looks at me one day while I'm drawing, she said, you know, you might have a nice coloring book yourself if you'd stop filling those things in. At that point, I changed course. And what I found was how amazing it is how the winds of change can fill your sails sometimes to send you in a totally different direction, one that you might never have traveled. I've been doing art for over 40 years. It never crossed my mind to make a coloring book until last year. She wasn't cleared to fly for 6 weeks. So as we wandered around Mapleton Hill, it was apparent that many of the houses were so cool that a coloring book of these places, accompanied by brief histories, might be popular. So I just kept going. She's healed up since the accident. Architectural portraiture has been a recurring theme in my art since I was a child. I wanted to frame, and I couldn't find it, of course, I had recently moved. It fits that we're here talking about architecture. So obsessed, I guess, is the best way of saying it, with drawing architecture. I love doing it. One of the things that I have here to show you is that this is a portrait of Old Main, the first building that was at, it was built at CU in 1876. 35 years ago, I made this sculpture for the University of Old Main. And it was at the Alumni University Club dining room for some 20-some years, and they did a remodel, and poof, it disappeared. And a friend came up to me at an opening last time I was in town and said, "I have your Old Main." And I'm like, how do you even know I made that? It wasn't really a public sort of thing, but sure enough, Kevin did, and I bought it back from him. And so I wanted to show that my enthusiasm for Boulder stretches to a third dimension, where this piece is 35 years old, and this piece is still wet. So I just really was very excited about being able to bring these pieces together. One of the things I hope to see is someone being so obsessed they fill the whole book in. And also, one of the things that I've been looking for, and I started to get this, this talk has brought this back out, to see other people's art and document it, either them sending us pictures or us being able to see to document it, so that we can put together a world book of Color Me Boulder that people have done from all over the world. I've sent these books to Germany, to England, to Italy, to Mexico, so that people can just enjoy them and do what they want to do with it. The way I look at it is, you jump into these sort of things, even if it's just a brick or a shingle. You start out and then you start it. And it's kind of a little bit on the theory of Bob Ross, it being your own little world. And in fact, what I found was downstairs, where my book was on display across from the checkout counter, is there was Bob Ross's coloring book of the Four Seasons right near my book. And so I was very excited about that. I've been a big fan of Bob Ross. But unfortunately, I have it on good knowledge that he will not be coming to the Boulder Bookstore to speak anytime soon. So that ends up, talking about coloring books falls to me. So you do not have to be an artist to do this. I want to get to the whole concept of one of the wildest things about coloring books is that there are all these preconceived notions that are in the midst of changing as we are sitting here today. And the three preconceived notions that are changing are, they are for children. That has changed, and I think thanks to millennials. I think that they're the ones that decided they wanted to use it as a focus point and for meditation. And also that they aren't made on good paper. This too has changed. Color Me Boulder is printed on 100-pound sketch paper, and the book is not the only one to print on higher quality paper stock these days. I remember that paper when I was a kid that had chunks of wood in it, that when you'd be drawing, the piece of wood would send you pen and pencil in the other direction. I've got it bad for architecture. I've got it really bad. Drawing it is incredibly inspiring to me. Immersing in the color feels like a lifeblood, and the inspiration is what I'm hoping it brings out in you. Watering his lawn between the hours of 9 and 4. He was fined $9, which translates to over $200 today. So it shows that Boulder had the whole concept of water usage in mind from the very get-go. This happened in 1882, and the Silver Lake ditch that goes up through Mapleton Hill was not built and completed until 1887. So, but these guys, not to be outdone, he and his brother, you see that beautiful clock that is on the wall. That's the National State Bank clock. And he and his brother were bankers, and they decided that having to work with the federal government treasury in Washington in terms of money and distance was just so inconvenient. So they proposed and got approval to create what they called Colorado currency, which they conveniently already had an artist prepare the plates and a printing press built ready to print the money. So when someone asked, how did the Buckinghams make their money? They literally printed it. So the house has got one of the grand porches. It's a porch that's like 150 feet wrapping around. Now, one of the other houses in the book is the McAllister house that you would know as the Mork and Mindy house. It's at 1619 Pine, and I'm sure the owners are thrilled that I'm reminding everybody of that. If we know this story, if you know the story about like after Robin died, there was like a Princess Di sort of tribute dumped there on the street with flowers and pictures and everything. After my friend Sharon was getting better, she asked if we could walk down to see the Mork and Mindy house. And I went, okay, so we wandered down Pine. We get there and we're taking the obligatory tourist pictures of like, here I am at Mork and Mindy's house. We did this, and I started to notice that all the lines of the architecture were just even, but the porch swing was angled downward, where Robin would sit talking with, Robin's character Mork would be talking with Mindy, as they talked about the differences in aliens and humans and love and everything. And I kept looking back as Sharon was taking these pictures of me, and I kind of got a little unnerved, like, is there somebody there? And if you think I'm just some sort of crazy ghost guy, I am. So it's not something that I worry about. It's like they're going to be there, they're going to be there. I'm not particularly scared of them. But it just was very, very strange. And being someone really attached to architecture, that line that was out of whack really bothered me. So much so that I did this painting of that particular scene. And it's in the book. And I floated, I made an image of Robin from warp times. So, and it was called, I was going the speed of light in a speed of sound zone. I didn't hear them pull me over until they had arrested me. And so I did this, and in the book, on the back inside page, this image of Mork is there where you can cut it out and put it into your painting once you're done with it. And it fits perfectly in the forms when he was in the Navy, scraping barnacles off the bottoms of ships. And so it was created also as polyurethane over steel forms by a builder by the name of Melvin Fuller. It was definitely a new manner at the time. It was built in 1969, and it was a new manner at the time of a living space. And Woody Allen found it to be a perfect setting for his 1973 film Sleeper. And when I recall hiking across that hillside during a full moon, and that house looked like a spaceship in the moonlight. It was unbelievable. So the Carnegie Library holds the archives for Hartling's work and remains one of the most artistic and innovative architects of his time. It'd be good for you to check him out because he has way more houses than just, way more architecture than that. Speaking of the Carnegie Library, I want to thank Wendy Hall, who's the lead librarian, who helped me put together the book and to make sure that I assembled the proper information about each house. So one house made it into the book because the people's dog, a golden retriever, walked up to me very friendly, took my gloves out of my hand and wandered off. And I said, so how do I get my gloves back? Well, tell her she's a good girl. Well, you're a good girl. So she brought the gloves back. And they also, that's the one right there. Yes, it's the Fonda house on the corner of 8th and Pine. They also boast, although they don't boast, they also have one of the most beautiful front yard gardens in the spring with the flowers, it's an absolute riot. And so I kind of focused in the drawing on the garden being really prominent so that you can use all the colors you want in that. So that the book only expanded up to this size. And I will be doing a number of these different ones around town, in front of the bookstore, in front of some of the other locations that carry the book, just to show people how this whole thing works. It's not, as I look around, I see a number of artists here that their skill levels are on multiple media at a level that is just like actually thrilling to see. I see people that are exceptional stained glass artists, exceptional kite makers, a number of public artists, muralists, chalk painters extraordinaire. It's really radio personalities that have the coolest music. And it's just one of those things that is an amazing, that's one of the reasons I moved back to Boulder, is that this is my tribe. And I mean, I think that's the best way to put it. This is my tribe. I see some of my dearest friends of my whole life sitting in this room right now, both old and new. And for those of you who when I said old, I don't mean you're old. I wanted to share this with you. This is a book that took about a year to do. I heard from Sharon, the lady who I told you the story about. I have to thank her because she was really an energizer to make this thing a reality. You know, it's like I'm looking in the studio that I'm in, thanks to some friends. And I have hundreds and hundreds of drawings. I had not really looked at these things. I would just make them and stuff them in a portfolio. And then finally I started pulling them out and organizing them. And it's almost kind of this, it's kind of almost uncomfortable. Like, I had no idea I drew that many pictures of dogs. I had no idea I drew that many buildings. But it's a great thing to be able to do. And I find that Boulder really unleashes my creativity in a manner that's so natural. It's just a blast to be back here.